Hi, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. Welcome to today's edition of Weather to Watch. Probably the biggest story would be the resurgence of some severe weather threats in the central U.S. In particular, Arkansas is under the bullseye, as are areas of the surrounding states. And this is the so called second season of severe weather that often occurs. And sometimes it just doesn't limit itself to October either. But oftentimes in October, we still have the temperatures, the warm temperatures, and the strong jet stream. But we'll get into that here in just a second. Here's the visible satellite loop on this late Thursday afternoon. We certainly have a lot of action in the northern plains. And if you just eyeball it carefully, you'll see a swirl in the clouds right there and another storm kind of streaming into the northwest. We have some moisture building down here in Texas, and that is going to feed into that severe weather possibility. And the east, with the exception of some backlash clouds around an upper level system in New England, is actually enjoying some very balmy and very nice fall weather. We'll take a look at the 500 millibar, big ridge of high pressure right here, just extending through the nation's midsection. Very deep upper level low pressure system with tight spacing of these lines, meaning strong winds at that level. This is the 500 millibar level, about 18,000 feet. So that is aiding in the development of what looks to be some showers and storms. And I'll show you in a minute whether those are expected to be severe. And it's the tailing end of this particular storm that's going to work its way into the plains on Saturday and rev up that severe weather threat I showed you at the beginning of this video. Before we get to that, though, we'll take a look at the surface map. We have very nice high pressure moving into the Great Lakes states. Very cool, very autumn-like air moving in. But we have a very classic low pressure system, warm front, cold front scenario set up over the plains. The air is fairly dry, meaning that the moisture values, the dew points, are not very high. So while there are some thunderstorm threats here, they have been rather limited so far. If you take a look at here, the dew points are in the 50s. If we look at these station reports, you see a little bit of light rain there in southeast South Dakota, but otherwise there's not a whole lot going on, but there is moderate and light rain going on the back end of this low. Not quite to the season where this would be snow yet, but the temperatures, that's the red on here, are in the 40s, so it is definitely turning a lot colder. Let's take a look at the severe weather threat. All right, well, as the storm begins to unfold for today, the rest of today till tomorrow morning, there is a level 1, which is a marginal risk of severe weather, kind of tucked away up there in northwest Kansas, parts of southwest Nebraska. Not a very large or significant threat. This shifts greatly by Friday, where showers and thunderstorms will be breaking out from almost up to southern Iowa, but certainly the Topeka and Kansas City area, Wichita, southeast Kansas, basically, a little sliver of western Missouri there, and all the way down to Tulsa and Oklahoma City, covering much of the state of Oklahoma. That's on Friday. Most of that probably be late in the day, evening. And then on Saturday, this is interesting because now earlier today, the Storm Prediction Center, the morning forecast made overnight, had actually taken this yellow slight risk area. I live in Springfield there, and we were on the extreme northwestern edge, meaning it was kind of drawn like this. Now it's backed up a little bit more to the north and west. So I think what's happened, and I've been looking at the model data, is that that slowing that I talked about on the last video is happening. So it's just basically if the upper level system slows a little bit, it just allows instability to creep back up to the north and even to the northwest. It allows the typical low with the dry line and the warm front to develop and maybe back these thunderstorm threats up a little bit more to the northwest than was previously thought. If we look at the learning machine from CSU and these three bar graphs, this one's covered up, sorry, this is tornadoes. So there is a 2% chance. That's what this is right here. The green, 0.02, just converted. So there is, a little bit of a tornado chance from central Illinois down through the heart of Missouri and into northern Arkansas. This right here is the hail probability. That's bullseyed up there around, right around I-44 there, around the Rolla area. And then the high winds are definitely there, probabilities. But it's interesting that the hail has spiked a little bit. The tornado threat is at least measurable for Tuesday. So it's something to certainly keep an eye on. If you're watching in the Ozarks, you know that I do a heads-up weather that zooms in on our region in particular. So look for that to come out tomorrow when we get some better model data, and we'll see how that severe weather threat maybe even shifts around more than it has even today. Well, as I showed you, 40-degree temperatures coming in on the backside of that low in the Dakotas, where the high is moving. Freeze warnings and frost advisories are widespread through much of the Northeast, including a pretty good chunk of Ohio. Pittsburgh is under a frost advisories, freeze warnings just east of there. And up along the Hudson River Valley, we have the very same kind of scattering. And then as far as out west, there are freeze warnings in effect for higher elevations of Colorado, Utah. Those are, you can just tell by the way they're shaped that they're mountain advisories. But there is a frost advisory on the north and the south side of Denver as well. Patterns are shifting in a rather interesting way. So this is the EPS Weekly. This comes out actually twice a week. The latest one would now start on this coming Monday and go for the next 7 days. So this is a mean, 7-day mean. So this is the 500 millibar. A little bit of a ridge kind of building back into the central U.S. again. But what's interesting is that this is a fairly anomalous trough of low pressure moving through the eastern United States. That implies cold temperatures coming in behind that right there on average for much of next weekend. And sure enough, the mean temperatures support that. As you can see here, Texas looks like it's going to be above normal, as are the northern plains and much of Canada, especially in northeastern Canada. But the western U.S. and also the eastern U.S., and including the Ohio River Valley and Tennessee River Valleys, are going to have some below normal temperatures. Let's see if we can do this on a daily breakdown. It's not every day. I skip a day. So on Friday, still pretty toasty. 73 seems like a nice temperature, but for this time of year in Green Bay, that's quite a bit above normal. And the hot temperatures, Little Rock, 88 degrees, 90s covering much of Texas. And then where you see the greens, those are below normal readings out in the western U.S. and a sliver of the Northeast as well. That's Friday. Sunday, skipping 2 days. Very cool in the wake of this weather system coming. So remember that slight risk area was right there on Saturday. So the cold air coming in behind that, providing a lot of rain cooled and cloud cooled air, but still generally cooler coming in behind that weather system. Northwestern U.S. is cool and still kind of toasty in New York State. And then we go ahead to Tuesday, country cut in half, basically. So basically the eastern one half is going to be experiencing slightly above normal temperatures in most areas, not too extreme, and slightly below normal temperatures in the western, basically one half of the U.S. So this goes through Tuesday. So if we go ahead and look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, which starts the very next day, it goes through that next weekend. It looks like high confidence of above normal temperatures in the high plains. Pretty good areas there where it's forecast to be kind of neutral. And as I showed you, a little bit cooler in the Carolinas and in the central part of the eastern coast of the country. As far as heavy rain is concerned, this is for the next 5 days. One obvious pattern exists from the Ozarks due northeast and much of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, forecast to get quite a bit of rain. Most of that is connected with that storm system, so it's not meant for tonight. High pressure's in control there and tomorrow. But as that storm begins to move out, we'll zoom in on here. We're seeing very common 2 to 3 inch totals through much of Michigan and Indiana and Ohio and the adjacent areas of Canada, of course, too. And even in southern Missouri, where the drought's been kind of pronounced, pretty dry. We haven't very few rain spurts. We're seeing, 1 to 2 inch rain totals there, so that would be a welcome sight as well. So if we go ahead and look at the 19th, there is that heavy rain possibility with that storm, but on the 20th, it shifts into the northeast, much of New England, with a heavy rain hazard for that date, the 20th. That's Monday. And then beginning Wednesday of next week through Sunday, it dries out in the central plains where it was forecast to be very wet, as you just saw. Storminess comes ashore in the Pacific Northwest with a fairly high confidence of above normal precipitation up in northern California, straight north into Washington. Well, the tropics are quiet for now. No named storms out there. This is a forecast that was issued on Tuesday, and it's showing the Caribbean under a pretty good risk. So it's the second level, a greater 40, less than 60% chance of some sort of tropical activity in that part of the world. The next week, by the way, week 3, nothing. And I want to show you that even I've seen this graph for a couple of days, and the NMC Hurricane Center NHC finally came out and did forecast this area out here to move slowly, so that by the end of the 7-day period, something is going to be here. The only reason that's significant is because all the tracks this year have been at this latitude here, and most have curved back out to sea well before they affected anything. This one has a more southern latitude track, which takes it into the Caribbean, not keeping it in the Atlantic. So it means it's at least possibility, depending on what happens with the upper level flow out here, that if something does develop, it has a chance of curving back north and actually impacting the United States, maybe even the Gulf. That's not a forecast. That's just a general kind of, you know, so much has to happen before that's even a possibility, but at least it is showing a shift in where the storms develop. And if you're curious, this year, here's a 25 hurricane season. As you can see, there's 12 storms on the list. Lorenzo was the last tropical storm, and there's where they all tracked. The hurricanes are red and purple on this map, and we've had 4 of those in total. And is that right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 4. And all 4 have actually made it to the major hurricane status. That's summed up here. So we've had 12 named storms, the 4 hurricanes, and 4 of them major hurricanes. And we are in now the forecast range. So the season probabilities were listed here. This was issued on August 7th, about a 50-50 chance of above normal year. So named storms falling a little bit short still. Might get to 13 if what I just talked about comes to play. And then the hurricanes kind of a little bit below what the forecast is so far. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.